All right, so we're going to get started with our next session. So our last session was more about identity than passkeys. The session is, can I confirm, much more about passkeys, right?
Definitely.
So really interesting topic. So we have Gregory Vigru, who's product line manager from Talus here. And what this talk is about is, okay, so you want to roll out Passwordless, but not every person in your organization has the same use case or preferences for authenticators, et cetera. So just going with, one size fits all, everybody does the same thing, might not be the best option for everybody. So Gregory is going to talk about some considerations and some alternatives for going with a one-size-fits-all approach to Passwordless. So please welcome Gregory Vigru.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. So today, as we said, we'll speak about Passwordless. So I'm Gregory Vigru, product line manager in Talus. So as we all know, every company are evolving. The last trend being going to the cloud or remote working. But by doing so, the company need to think about how to satisfy all their users, specifically about the authentication processes. When I speak about the user, I want to speak about the consumer, which are buying the product of the company, but as well about the partners, where you are doing business with, and of course about the workforce as well. And not being able to provide a good user experience for the authentication can lead to a lot of issues. If I take for the consumers, as an example, you can basically have a loss of revenue because people will not be able to buy the product. It was said the keynote yesterday. If you think about the workforce or the partners, if you don't provide a good user experience, they will try to avoid authenticating too often. They may copy data from your network and share it not under your control. And for the workforce as well, if they are not able to connect easily and seamlessly, basically it can be a lack of productivity as well. So that's why every company needs to go passwordless. Passwordless is key now. That's a key topic. After, passwordless can mean many things. You can be passwordless by just replacing the password with a single authentication factor, or maybe replacing a password with a multi-factor authentication, or a magic link, or an SSO. There are multiple of methods. Today, we speak specifically about how to equip the workforce with a passwordless solution. So when we speak about passwordless to our customers, basically very often we are trying to look at what are the challenges they have, what are the main pitfalls they need to avoid to be able to deploy a successful passwordless strategy. The first one being the one-size-fits-all approach, thinking that the mobile device can solve all the issues. It's true that very often the phone is a very good tool, very easy to deploy and very good. But if you look at the US and only the US, 15% of the users don't want to use a private phone to do authentication. Or sometimes you have network coverage issues. Or even sometimes in some states in the US, you have some reimbursement policies where basically the company needs to pay the user for using his private phone. That can lead basically to a lot of hidden costs. So that's why mobile is good, but maybe sometimes not the only or the best solution. After, you need to think about the user experience you want when doing some authentication. I will take a simple example. If you go to an office, definitely Windows Hello with facial recognition is perfect because you can open your computer, log on very quickly. But you can take in the same company, in a factory, in manufacturing floor, where people have face protection, of course, they cannot use such technology. They will prefer maybe an NFC badge they have on the shirt. They can use it much more easily than a face recognition software. So that's why in the same company, sometimes you need to have different authentication methods to be sure to cover all the population, all the personnel, etc. So you need to think about that. The first point, and it was addressed as well in the previous session, is companies have deployed authentication solutions since years, 10 years, 15 years. So all the legacy systems very often are not compatible with FIDO. We all believe, and Gartner believe, that FIDO is a future authentication for everything. And we are all here for that today. But unfortunately, there are still some legacy systems that don't support it. So when you are deploying a passwordless, you need to see about all your use cases, everything else in your company, to be able to offer the best user experience everywhere. The last point here in the slide being the lack of lifecycle credential. Very often, some people are deploying something which is very easy to use, but when the user loses the device or during the enrollment, they need to have some fallback solution which are quite weak because they don't plan that in ahead. So they need to think about that, and they need to plan it very efficiently. When you think about that, first thing is to think about the user persona. Who will do the connection? And after, there are multiple criteria that you need to look into to be able really to decide what is the best for you. And there is no just one solution today. You need to think about where the people is connecting, at home, remote, on-site, roaming, etc. With which device, which regulation is behind the data you want to access. So there are multiple criteria today you need to think about. One of the key things is we have some customers. I will just give you an example of that. There is some customer in the US, in the hospital, where the doctors can go to the hospital and they have shared desktop, basically. They have a PKI badge, so a badge with X509 certificate, and they can use it to access regulated data, which are the data health information. They can do it perfect. It works very well. But when they go to municipal health clinic, they need some time to bring their own laptop to be able to connect. Or there is a shared tablet to be able to connect to the same data. In this context, very often now they are going to FIDO because FIDO can meet some regulation as well, and they are totally okay for that. But here I was just saying that previously I said two different users may have different needs, but sometimes the same user can have different needs depending on the device, location, etc. So it's definitely complex. So in this slide, we just try to rank all the possible authentication methods. The key thing here is to think about that, and you need to map whatever you want to build. Of course, you need to look at what are the use case, the user persona I was talking about, but as well, what is more convenient for the user. What is in light blue here is all the phishing-resistant method. Obviously, you will find all the FIDO and Passkeys, whatever sync passkey, device-bound passkey, etc., but as well some PKI technology. Again, PKI is quite important in the regulation and in the legal. It's what was deployed basically since 10, 15 years that exists in the company. So definitely our recommendation, whatever you have in terms of mapping, is to try to deploy something phishing resistant. FIDO when possible. If not, let's try to find a fallback. If it's not possible in your context, the only recommendation that we have today is a mobile push with some matching number technology to avoid bombing attacks of receiving multiple messages, etc. But obviously, phishing resistant first. So I will not go into all of that. That's too many information. But what are the key recommendations, let's say, that we can do for our customers? The first one, which is a big trend today, is the physical access. I mean, to combine everything with a single badge, because a lot of companies have a physical badge with their face, their name on it, etc. And by adding FIDO or PKI into it, they can have still one single item to give to the users to be able to everything, physical access and logical access. That's kind of perfect. And even you have NFC to connect to mobile devices, so you can do multiple things. But if the company don't care about physical access, if they already have other systems, if they are only remote workers, etc., then a USB token will be much more efficient in this case, because you don't need to buy readers, etc., so very easy to connect. If it's only about authentication to Windows, to Mac, etc., FIDO token is perfect. Let's go for it. It's very easy, because all these type of ecosystem are working quite well. Last thing to say, which is quite important, is if you are still targeting consumers and you are using password, you should stop, obviously, immediately. And what we recommend in this case is a sync passkey. Much better than a password, very efficient and very easy to deploy. So what are the pros and cons of the sync passkey? I guess you already get the message multiple times, but what is the Thales vision of that? So on the very positive side, of course, you don't have to think about, do I have my key on my device, etc. Everything is automatic. Meaning that if you're in the Apple ecosystem, You connect to your bank account, you create a passkey, and a few minutes later, you get your iPhone, and the iPhone will recognize you, the bank will recognize you, and you can seamlessly connect immediately. You don't have nothing to do. That's very good. As well, they are solving the challenge of device recovery. I mean, I'm losing my device. How I will do to connect tomorrow? You don't care. You care about the device, of course, but you don't care about your authentication because any devices attached to your Apple account will be able to connect you easily. So that's very good. But on the bad side of it, of course, is that someone else has your key and manages it on your behalf. So sometimes when you think about regulation, that do not match yet. We have very often the question from customers, can I use passkey to reach multi-factor authentication or strong authentication? In a sense, yes and no. The thing is, it's multi-factor because to be able to access, you need the device possession, and you need as well your face, your PIN, etc., so a second factor to connect. But in terms of regulation, if I take NIST as an example, this FIDO is not AL2, so Authenticator level 2, because the key is not binding to one device, because the key is on multiple devices. So today, a lot of regulation thinks that it's not good enough. When you are in the healthcare sector, when you are in the government or financial, it's not good enough to think passkeys. But of course, the FIDO Alliance is working on the regulation, trying to change that. So I talk about the sync passkeys, but as well, you know, there is a device-bound passkeys. Main difference being that on the device-bound passkeys, the key are inside the device, whatever it's a token, a card, or even maybe sometimes some mobile application from a bank as an example. And then the big difference is the key is inside the device and never leaves the device. Only the device has the key. In this context, you are much more secure, you're in control. If the device is not reachable, then you cannot authenticate, but you are insecure. So one main question now will be, which passkey you should deploy? As I already said, it highly depends on the regulation behind and the data you want to protect. If you want to protect you are working in government, finance, healthcare, etc., you should go for a device-bound passkey. You have regulation behind, you have no option. If it's for the consumer market, it's for non-sensitive data, sync passkeys are very good because they are free to deploy very easily, and that's good for that. So up to you to balance, again, looking at the map and deciding what makes sense for you. So, as I said, we have a lot of legacy systems to support, etc. That's a kind of summary of what I said earlier before going to the bio part. Here, you have on the market multiple form factors, multiple devices, multiple technology, FIDO being the primary one. But you need to think about what you want to do. You still want to do email encryption, digital signature. You want to have a physical access badge as well. You want to support it on multiple devices like iPhone, Android, etc. Then sometimes you need NFC for doing that. Sometimes you need PKI for doing so. Up to you to decide. You need to think about compliance. You need to think about devices, user persona, etc. Of course, in Thales, we in general recommend PKI and FIDO product combined in the same one to cover the maximum use cases possible. Now we'll touch a bit the biometric part. In fact, the key thing to understand about biometrics, it's not a security feature. It's a convenience feature. Many customers think that, oh, I will deploy biometry, it will be very easy, and user will stop putting the PIN on a post-it, etc. It's not true. Because in every standard, and FIDO being one of the main standards today, the PIN is mandatory to control the fingerprint. So the one who has the PIN is able to remove the fingerprint, to put other fingerprint or other biometric data, etc. So that's why it should not be considered as a security feature. But in terms of convenience, it's a game changer. Because you can use a card or a token with biometric, you plug it on a phone, and then in 1 second you're authenticated. It's very, very easy to use once deployed. In order to register your fingerprint, now it's integrated into Windows 10 and 11 since multiple years. It's exactly what like you do on your iPhone or Android. It's very easy. You just need to press the sensor on your token on your card multiple times. And you have something in evolution, and boom, it's done. In 1 minute, you have set up a PIN, you have set up a fingerprint without any specific tools, just with a Windows 10 machine. So it's easy to do, easy to deploy, and very convenient for the user. And as I said at the beginning of the conference, you need to provide the best possible seamless user authentication for the users to be able to have a successful strategy. So main takeaway, the first thing is, of course, a lot of customers are still using passwords today. First thing, if you don't want to invest into strong authentication, etc., you should remove the password and go for sync keys, the passkeys. In terms of security, so we try to rank, you will see multiple options here. We try to rank this in terms of security, in terms of user experience. So here you see that what we believe, and that's the market belief, basically, that security are quite good for the sync passkeys, and the user experience is perfect. But as soon as you want to reach some regulation standard, like PSD2 in the banking sector, this is not good enough, unfortunately, today. So you will find multiple solutions on the market. The first one being something on the phone. I'm thinking about like an app on the phone that will help you for the authentication. For that, the security is quite good, and the user experience as well. Once you download the app, after it's very easy to manage. Last thing being the device-bound passkey, so a physical hardware token or card. Then the security is at the maximum. Convenience is definitely a bit lower, because if you lose your device, then you need to re-enroll again, you need to find an alternative, etc. But it matches all the regulation. And after, we just did a difference between classic device-bound passkey with a PIN and device-bound passkey with a biometrics. Of course, bio is better in terms of user experience because, as I said, it's very simple to use. You just need to press your finger and you're authenticated. So what are the key takeaways of what I just said? First thing is, if you want to be successful in your passwordless strategy, you first need to do a mapping of user persona, devices, location, regulation, data, etc., so which is quite complex at the end, but you must do it. You must do it. Second thing is FIDO is the gold standard today. But unfortunately, some systems still don't support it. So you need to think about what are the other mechanisms, protocols I need to deploy inside the product to be able to support what I already have. The point being, be able to do a kind of transition as smooth as possible, as seamless as possible for the user and for the company to a world with FIDO only is very good. And the last point is, when possible, take some biometric device because it will help you to have the best possible user experience. And that's all. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions? Okay. So Gregory, would you mind just going back to the slide where you had the passkeys?
This one before?
Yeah, the one that had the industries and then the
before.
There you go. Oh. Yeah, that's the one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
There you go. Yeah, thank you. So, could you talk a little bit about? So we see, and you know, kind of have some of the users, but let's look at each of these in turn for workforce, right? So, yeah. Could you talk a little bit about like the types of users? Like, so I see retail in use cases, you know, 1, 3, and 4. Are there use cases in retail where sync passkeys would work for certain kinds of employees?
Yes. So basically, it still may work, as I said, depending mainly about the regulation you are in. As I said, finance, healthcare, government, you should avoid. But in all the other sectors, it's up to you to decide if it's good enough for you or not. And of course, about the regulation you are in. Depending on the regulation, sometimes you just cannot. If not, in any case, much, much, much better than a password. So you need to go to sync passkeys.
Okay, thank you. And then from like a deployment perspective, if you were an organization that wants to deploy hybrid authentication methods, is there could you talk a little bit about, this is in the app by the way, so I'm just trying to rephrase it a little bit about how an organization should start that journey? Are there particular user groups they should start with first and then move to others, or is it, you know, what would you recommend for that?
Yeah, so in general, as I said, the best is to do kind of global mapping, and after, I agree with you, maybe you can start by some population one by one, because as I said, depending on the population, depending on what they do, sometimes it makes sense or it makes not sense to deploy an hardware. Sometimes sync passkeys are much better, and yeah, basically.
Would you say to, like, if you had to start somewhere, start with XYZ type? Is it like the most privileged? Is it the easiest to deploy, or something else?
No, most privileged. Today, I mean, that's at least the target that we believe is the most important, because this population already have some strong authentication mechanism. They need to go to FIDO to have a more seamless user experience and to be able as well to evolve their IT ecosystem. And this population, in general, is the first one to protect. Second thing is obviously to remove all the passwords. You should stop, obviously, to use password to go to something, to the passkey, to the sync passkey, basically.
Is there a particular journey or time period to enroll with like a passkey, whether it's device bound or synced, and then actually remove the password? Like, do you recommend having the password for like a certain amount of time, or are there certain other sort of recovery mechanisms to put in place before you do that?
In general, I mean, we try to support as many as possible to have the choice for the customer. And we have, I mean, it was in the slide as well, but we have maybe 10 different authentication mechanisms as a fallback that sometimes that don't require any specific hardware or even software to be able to be used. But the idea behind is no more password, and we are trying to propose, etc., whatever the best for the customer. So there is no one method that works for everyone. We need to pick the best all the time.
Okay, thank you so much. So that's, I don't know if folks were in Ralph Lindemann's session yesterday, but he said the same thing with regard to the variety of options for recovery. So that resonated with me, but it's good to hear you say that too. Is there any other questions? All right, well, thank you so much, Gregory.
Thanks so much.